Hey everyone, I hope your week is going great and you're still following the 3 H's of the channel, even though it's Friday. And a couple weeks ago, I think it was a couple weeks ago, I mentioned that maybe every now and then I might do like a third video where I just talk about spooky things, a couple articles that I come across, and stuff like that. So I figured I'd test the waters here today and just kind of see what comes to mind, I guess. And since this is the first one, it's just going to be me talking about a couple articles and talking about weird questions that come to mind whenever I read the article and stuff like that. So I have a couple to start us off. This first one, and these will be down in the description as always. But anyways, this headline says witness from Missouri claims to have communicated with Bigfoot. Now it was posted on July the 18th, so I'm kind of behind, but seeing a Bigfoot is strange as it is, even though the sightings seem very common these days because of the internet and all that stuff, but it's still under the realm of high strangeness. Most people will go their entire lives and never see anything like it. But for this guy, not only did he see a Bigfoot, he allegedly communicated with it. I won't play the guy's clip because there could be a copyright reason, so I'll just leave it in the description and you can go listen to what he says if you'd like to. But there are quotes here. So it says it was reposted by the KHMOAM 1070 before it was picked up by other news outlets. He said that when he saw this thing, which was possibly outside of his own home, he said, "We don't have to be scared of each other. We could live in peace." And then he said, "I didn't want him to hurt me, and I didn't want to hurt him." And then he said, quote, "He hit me with the infrasound, and it hit me hard. It made me physically shudder. And I don't know if there's a telepathic component to it or not, but what I felt is you could feel it go through your body. You don't hear anything, but it was like anger, fear, hatred, and doom all rolled into one, directly at you." Now, assuming that it's true, this asks a lot of questions, at least from my point of view. One is that an ape-like creature can use infrasound at all, or telepathy for that matter. That and it being able to project emotions like that as well. So the whole situation just gets stranger and stranger, because you also wonder, are there people out there who may be able to understand that? Or better yet, do we as people have, or had in the past, some kind of ability where we could do the same thing or understand it? Because you hear these old legends and myths, or whatever you want to call them, about people having relationships with Bigfoot or mountain men, Yeti, whatever the name for them is. So were they able to understand these sounds or these feelings? Or did they have like a special person for it? There's not really much data on this, I don't think. At least, not in my quick Google search anyways. And I heard one theory that was interesting, and I'll relate it back to this, is that in the distant past, humans did have these abilities. They had telepathy, they could do all kinds of stuff with our minds. And somehow or some way, we lost it. And now, these days, we use technology to cope with the loss of the senses that we had prior. And that may have also been the reason why that humans kind of stayed in that hunter-gatherer phase for so long, is because we had those senses, so we didn't need anything else. But that's just a theory, and I just kind of relate it back to that, because at that point in time, maybe we were able to communicate with Bigfoot or with nature or with any other entity or being like that much easier than we do now. But I guess that's just kind of my batshit crazy take on it. Just questions that come to you while reading stuff like this. And again, that article will be down in the description if you want to read the full thing yourself. And this next one is a very interesting story from Mysterious Universe written by Brent Swanser. And it's called A Mysterious Case of Alien Reptilian Humanoids in Italy. So this article talks about a man named Pier Zanfretta, and it starts on December 6th, 1978. So before all of this, Pier was working private security, and he was living in the rural village of Torrigula in Italy. So it's a pretty kind of unassuming job in an unassuming place. You'd never think that a whole bunch of stuff would happen. I live in a rural area, and that's kind of why I like it, because not a lot happens. But anyway, on this particular evening, he was on his usual night patrol. He peered into the gloom, quote, to navigate the frigid icy roads, when he noticed what appeared to be 4 mysterious lights emanating from a nearby home. At this very moment, his car apparently sputtered and died, but he did not connect this to the lights that he was seeing just yet. He assumed that the lights he was seeing to be flashlights from burglars trespassing on the property of the home. Now, this was also the home of a wealthy doctor named Ettore Riggi, so he estimated that there were 4 trespassers, and then he left his vehicle to investigate. He had his weapon drawn and at the ready. He stealthily made his way onto the property, creeping around to the back where the lights seemed to be coming from, and he had no idea that as he peeked around the corner, his life was about to be changed forever. So for me, if I was seeing strange lights in someone's backyard and then all of a sudden my car died, I'd probably connect the two. But then again, I'm into all this stuff, so I probably think a little differently than a lot of other people would. Most people would be like, oh, that's real weird. What's going on in this guy's backyard? But for me, I'd probably be like, that's a whole bunch of nope right there. But continuing on, in the backyard of the estate, he saw this glowing red, oval-shaped object. He said it had a diameter of over 33 feet. This was enough for him to be like, what the hell, and start backing away. He was going to call it to his supervisor, and as he's backing away, he claims that he then turned around to be confronted with the astonishing sight of an immensely large being standing at around 10 feet in height, looming over him, which he said was an enormous, green, ugly, and frightful creature with undulating skin. He said it was as though he were very fat or dressed in a loose gray tunic. And a really interesting detail about all this is that he said that the reptile thing was wearing a mask or a mouthpiece of some sort. He also said that the creature was covered in scales as well, and its skin was molted. So as I said just a minute ago, a very interesting detail is the fact that whatever it was, a reptilian, was wearing a mask. Now I would assume that it's so it can breathe on Earth, and the skin may have been molted because of our climate. It's hard to say. A lot of times when you hear stuff about reptilians, it's never just out in the open like this. It's deep underground, and there's all these conspiracy theories about it as well. He goes on to say that they had green flesh, big thorns, and triangular yellow eyes, and their skin is full of wrinkles as if they're very old. He said that their mouths looked like they were made of iron, and they had red veins on their heads, pointed ears, and arms with fingernails. He says in fact they were so grotesque and savage and frightening in appearance that Sanfreda started to run away, and that's when these creatures hit him with some sort of energy blast or heat beam or heat blast or whatever, some kind of neutralizing weapon. He would be later found unconscious by other guards that responded to his screaming and panicked calls for help over the radio that he was given for his job. And when they woke him up, he was in an obvious daze and a state of shock. He was even waving his gun around as if he were still trying to shoot them. Now, his clothes were also found to be hot to the touch, despite that he had been laying there for hours. And it's important to mention that since the roads were icy, that means that the ground was probably frozen as well, and laying there for hours on a frozen ground probably isn't great for you, and the fact that he was still hot to the touch is really interesting. And interestingly enough, when he told the police what happened, they didn't blow him off as some crazy person. They called the military police for a full investigation, so that makes me wonder if this had happened before. Not saying it's a common occurrence, but if it happened enough that they have a procedure for it. And if that's the case, maybe that town isn't as quiet as it seems. Now, during the investigation, though, they found some amount of physical evidence. They found large anomalous footprints, scorched trees, and strange deep imprints shaped like horseshoes in the earth where this UFO had rested. It also turns out that a lot of other people in the area had seen or heard something unusual at around the same time that Zanfretta had his crazy encounter. And interestingly enough, the gun that he had was found to have been fired 5 times. But now the media at the time picked this up as more of a tabloid type story, but a journalist named Reno Di Stefano with the newspaper Corriere Mercantile took it upon himself to kind of go deeper into this. And what this journalist found was that Zanfretta at least truly believed what he was saying. Whether or not that he believed him when he was hearing the story is not mentioned, but it was probably convincing enough because he told Zanfretta to undergo hypnotic regression and try to uncover the lost memories and the missing time from that night. Now, this would bring about many new details. Zanfretta claimed, while under hypnosis, that he had actually been taken aboard the reptilian alien ship, where he had been examined and interrogated using some sort of translator device. The aliens supposedly told him that they were from the planet Teutonia, located in the 3rd galaxy, and that they were preparing to visit Earth in greater numbers. Making things even more bizarre was that this would apparently not be the last brush Zanfretta would have with these enigmatic beings. Now, his experiences continued. December 26th, Boxing Day, 1978. Zanfretta was driving on patrol when his car seemed to stop responding to him. It started steering itself and acting as if it was being controlled, but it seemed to be controlled intelligently. The vehicle proceeded to go careening towards a remote area in the countryside, whereupon it suddenly stopped by itself and seemed to be bathed in bright light. And at this point, he says that he was once again taken aboard their alien ship, the same aliens as before, and they put some kind of communication helmet on him, which he said was very uncomfortable. And then one of the beings took his gun and fired it at the craft's walls, seemingly curious as to what it was. And I think that's interesting as well, because it shows how different our technological trees, I guess, went. Like our main defense weapon, I guess, is a projectile. It's a gun. But with them, it seems to be more of an energy beam. Is that like just how much more advanced they are, or is that just a kind of a different approach to what we already have? I don't know. It's an odd question, and I'm still trying to word it properly in my head, but I hope you get what I mean. Now, these aliens also offered to take him with them, but he refused, so they did let him go. Now, they did abduct him again the following year. Now, this time, they took him to some sort of mothership, which they showed him this frog-like alien in suspended animation that they claimed was of an enemy species. There was also a bird-like creature, and some being that looked like a caveman, similarly in this suspended animation that had tubes all through them. And then they gave him some kind of transparent sphere that had a golden tetrahedron that would rotate in suspension. Its purpose was unknown, but Zanfretta would later claim that he had hidden this sphere away in a safe place, and he refuses to show it to anybody, so we don't know if he actually got one or not. But, assuming that it is true, what a weird thing to give somebody. Like, no selfie, no, like, picture with the gang all together, just a weird little trinket. But that may also be what they think of us, that we're just kind of dumb little creatures, and that everything is way beyond our understanding. Which I can understand why they might feel that way, because if I got taken aboard a spaceship and I saw a giant frog being that was in suspended animation, I'd be like, 1, how does this suspended animation work? 2, where is this frog thing from? 3, why are we on a spaceship? And, just many other questions that may kind of evolve from there. So now this whole thing was a lot for me to read because my only experience with weird things in the sky was one time or a few times I've seen something weird in the sky, and that's it. And I was like, hey, that's pretty cool. Maybe it's a UFO. And then I went about my day because what exactly am I supposed to do about it? And I mean, too, probably if anything like this happened to me, I wouldn't want to tell anybody about it. Because imagine, like, telling your family, oh yeah, I was abducted by aliens and taken aboard a mothership, and then I was shown different species of aliens. Like, everyone's going to think that you're just batshit crazy. So, the fact that he actually came forward, I think, does show that he really does believe what happened to him. But now Zanfretta claims that he was abducted no fewer than 11 times between the years of 1978 and 1981. On one occasion, several security personnel would also see the UFO and try to fire on it, but their bullets and guns had no effect. This kind of asks the question, is there some kind of force field? Or are our guns just kind of not powerful enough to kind of get through? It's hard to say. And one of the oddest ones was when he was at a service station and was met by a being with an egg-shaped head that was wearing a checkered suit of some sort with a chest plate made of metal. Zanfretta has since appeared numerous times in interviews and TV shows in Italy. Now, he still maintained that this is all true. Now, one of the reasons that I think that something did happen to this man, because at the beginning of the article it talks about how unassuming that he was. So I think that it would be very difficult for a regular person to just make up all of this. Like, I know I'm not really a writer, so I would never be able to just pull all this out of my head. Like, something would obviously have to happen for me to draw inspiration from, at least, or something would have to happen where I'm just like retelling the events of what happened, regardless of how crazy they may sound to other people. And it's a bad analogy, but it would be similar to like you going fishing. You pull a fish out of the water, and then you look at it, and then you put it back in the water again. Like, if those fish went and talked to each other and was like, oh, I was taken by humans, this other fish who was never seen a human is like, yeah, whatever. You know, it's a bad analogy, but it's just the dumb thing I think of whenever I'm talking about things like this. Now, I've rambled on for about 18 minutes now, so I figure you all are probably tired of hearing me talk and ramble, so I will end it off here. And if you liked this, then maybe I can do more, which are a little more formatted and not just me sitting in a dark room reading articles. But if you would like to see more of this, then sure, comment and like and subscribe. And as always, there's links in the description that you can donate to or send your story in or all that great stuff. Thank you all for subscribing to this channel. Thank you all for liking the videos. I do try to read every comment. I may not heart every comment or like every comment, but I try to read every comment. So, yeah. If you're liking this, then maybe I'll do more. If you don't, then I'll just stick with the stories. It's okay. I just figured I'd try something. And I hope you have a good weekend. And remember to stay happy, healthy, and hydrated. And stay safe, too. And I will see you on Sunday. And I hope you enjoy that video. I dive a little more into Michigan and the stories of the state. So I hope you'll be around for that. And with that, I'll see you then. Thank you for pulling up a stump, and thank you for watching.